So, Intel 13900K, here it is. In this video, we're going to be checking out how good is it in video editing performance in Premiere Pro. We're going to be testing footage from 4K all the way to 12K. So if you are a video editor, this is the ultimate test to see how good is the i9 13th gen from Intel 13900K.
Looking for a cheap way to license your Windows? Check out Hookeys through the links in the video description. Make sure to use the code TN20 to get a 30% off. Paste the license to the activation settings and you're all done. This license is for Windows 10, but you can upgrade it to Windows 11 for free. They also offer Microsoft Office 19 license. Use the same code TN20 to get a 30% off. Check out hookeys.com in the video description below.
First of all, if you are a videographer and you have footage that I'm not showing in this video, like 6K footage, 4K, 8K or something like that, that is from a camera that I don't have here, I'd love to have some sample footage from you because I don't have all the cameras. So just DM me on Instagram or check out the email in the description below where we can just exchange the footage. I'd massively appreciate that if you want to do that or see your footage in the future being featured in this video. Secondly, I haven't actually done and ran all the benchmarks of this. I've just literally plugged it in, and first thing I want to do is see the video editing performance. So I highly recommend you go check out the actual CPU review that's already out there somewhere over there. Check it out. But about this Testbench Setup, we're running the Asus Z690 motherboard, Pro Art motherboard. The CPU is the i9 13900K. We're running 64 gigabytes of Kingston Fury Beast DDR5 memory at 5200 MHz CL40. The GPU is the RTX 3090 TUF from Asus, and the cooling is the Fantex Glacier 1, but we're using the actual Fantex T30 fans over there, which basically just gives a better airflow and tries to keep the CPU as cool as possible, or basically eliminate as much CPU bottlenecks in there as possible. The SSDs are Samsung 980 Pros. For OS, we're running the 1TB one, and for the benchmarks, we're running the secondary SSD, which is 2TB in the size. The PSU is the Deepcool BQ1000M power supply. It's a 1000 watt power supply, 80 watt plus, so plenty of juice to run all of this. So let's go. We're also going to be running the hardware monitor here to actually see what's different. By the way, this is the Windows 22H2 build, which is looks a little bit different. Like theme of the Windows is a little bit nicer and fluid, new. It's very much recommended to run this build of Windows 11 for this 13th gen if you're going to get it. But the iGPU is on as well. We've got the drivers installed there. Memory is running 5200 mega transfers, and we've got the 13900K. Let's see all these 24, no, actually it's 32 threads and 24 cores, so pretty cool. So we're going to start with 8-bit 420 60 frames per second. This is pretty basic. We're going to press play. And this is the drops frame indicator as well. We're running everything at full speed. I'm actually recording this HDMI out outside this. It's a different PC that's recording this, so the recording is not going to be affected by the performance. So we're just going to see literally this performance here. And as you can see, our Intel iGPU is playing this back, and it's going to be very smooth, full resolution 4K here. Also, all the footage that I'm testing are with adjustment layers, so we have a color grading on as well to kind of give a little bit more like real world kind of performance or what you can expect. As you can see here, very smooth timeline. I've got nothing to say. 8-bit, no problem. Now this is 10-bit. Let's see if this is any different. 420 H.264. Let's press play. No problem. As you can see, again, we're using the Intel decode on the CPU to play this back. There's two media engines in there. There's two decoders and two encoders there. So as you can see, they're playing this back over there. And it's very smooth. Timeline performance, even 10-bit, 24 frames per second, no problem. Let's try a 10-bit 422. Now, the chromoscope sampling has changed to 422. And this is more on the CPU, and as you can see, boom, CPU has boosted 100% there when we play that back. Let's press play. CPU is about 10% there, but no problem there. Look at this. This is super smooth, like probably the smoothest I've ever seen 422. This is 10-bit H.264 playback. Absolutely insane performance. Sony A7S III footage as well, 10-bit 422. And this is just normal 25 frames per second plus the color grade H.264. 422. So this is what I'm usually recording from the side camera all the time. Timeline performance here, quite smooth, but interestingly that 25 frames per second always with this is not as smooth as some of the other codecs. But now when we move on to the secondary clip, this is SI, so all intra clip, which basically means it's less compressed a little bit, there's more info, which means it's a little bit easier to play back. As you can see instantly, timeline plays back 0 dropped frames. It's 25 frames per second as well. Timeline is very smooth, much smoother than actually just normal compressed 422 10-bit. Moving on to 60 frames per second 422. This is H.264 as well. Playback, no problem when we're playing this back. Timeline is slightly choppy, but as you can see, still very much doable and very instant when clicking around timeline. It's one of the smoothest I have ever had. By the way, at the end of the video, we're gonna be checking out the hardware monitor here as well to see the temperatures and what it just pulled from the CPU to see how well we did. It's fine. So this is 50 frames per second, 10-bit 420. This should be accelerated on the NVIDIA encoder as well. Let's see, or decoder. No, in fact, it's going on the Intel one, which is fine because Intel actually has a bit better decoders on the CPU than NVIDIA. Very smooth, like buttery smooth. Moving up a scale a little bit. So this is H.265 422 60 frames per second 10-bit from Canon R5 and 4K. So usually this is really hard to play back on any of the CPUs if you don't have hardware acceleration. But because of the iGPU inside the 13th gen there, which is exactly the same as 12th gen, it's super smooth. So timeline is like buttery smooth. I can't believe how fast this is. Pressing play as well, 60 frames per second. Playing back, no problem. As you can see, it's getting decoded here on the Intel one. Interesting, it just changed the decode. Did you see that? Is it one clip changes one? Let's see if it changes now the clip here. Okay, clip's gonna change. Yeah, look at that. One clip gets decoded on one decoder and the other one on the other. Interesting. Look, it changes now again. Boom, goes down and then now change to the other one. Interesting, but honestly, so smooth. Now, a little bit more cinema camera footage here. This is Canon C200. This is 60 frames per second, if I remember correctly. Yes, and this is DCI 4K, okay? We're gonna be looking at the timeline. Extremely smooth. These are two clips on top of each other. There's one moon and there, as you can see, one and then the other one over there. So both of these on top, very smooth. So if I'm pressing play, let's see. Usually this should be struggling, but let's have a look how much we're pushing through. 150 watts, something like that. I mean, look at that. No problem, absolutely no problem. 2 times the speed. Yeah, we're dropping some frames, but honestly, even still, completely doable and very instant. Just feels like so far it's the best CPU I've tried than any other CPUs. Like even the Threadripper 64 core CPU wasn't as smooth as this one. This is 4K Red RAW. That's been always very smooth. It's very easy to edit and play back on the CPU. As you can see, no problem. Now this is still 4K, but this is 120 frames per second, and I haven't seen this played back full resolution and none of the CPUs have played this back. So this is H.264 8-bit 100 and is it decoding? Okay, interesting, using the NVIDIA decoder to play this back the 120 frames per second. Now this is 10-bit 120 frames per second, but look, it plays it back real time. Because does it use CPU? Yeah, it literally plays back on software and it's hardly dropping any frames. We've dropped 1 frame. That's completely fine. So the NVIDIA 8-bit 420 H.264 seems a little bit better timeline or smoother timeline. It's very similar actually. So this is, as you can hear, the fans go crazy sometimes. This is H.265 420 10-bit 120 frames per second. Let's see what plays this back. Okay, Intel integrated graphics. As you can see, it actually can keep up 120 frames per second. H.265 420 10-bit. Playing it back, 0 dropped frames. The timeline is quite smooth as well, but bear in mind, it's 4K. 120 frames per second, which is pretty crazy. And then last of all, this is H.265 422 10-bit 120 frames per second. We've dropped 1 frame, but this is actually decoded as well, hardware accelerated on NVIDIA. And look at that, that's how good the NVIDIA iGPUs are, to have 120 frames per second, 10-bit 422 H.265 played back, fantastic. Now moving up, this is Red RAW, 5K Red RAW, and the 12900K had actually issues playing this back just because the 8 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores, this wasn't quite enough here. So I'm curious to see if it's going to play this back. We've dropped 2 frames, so I'm going to give it another go. CPU is 100%, but we're not dropping any frames. It does take 270 watts to play this back, but look, first time on Intel we're playing back 5K Red RAW without any drop frames, so this is very impressive. Timeline performance very smooth as well though. Now this was another one of those codecs that used to drop a lot of frames. We've got 6K Red RAW, let's have a look. Dropping 5 frames, 8 frames, 11 frames. Yeah, we're still dropping a few frames. As you can see, 270 watts push through. It's quite hard to do. Let's try again. Pressing play. At first 0 frames dropped. Then drops a few frames. Yeah, as you can see. Oh, it keeps, look, 29. 29. Look at that. It actually can kind of play it back, which is very interesting. But you can see its CPU is 100% utilized here. Okay, let's try this again. Timeline performance though, at full 6K resolution, red 6K RAW, it's quite alright. But if you are doing red 6K RAW, you can actually do it. Look at this. This time now we've dropped 4 frames, 9. Few frames, but the picture looks rather smooth, quite smooth to be honest. It's still struggling slightly. This is, let's see if this is any different when there's no color grade applied. No, the same. Now this is Blackmagic RAW 6K B RAW. Okay, let's have a look. Timeline obviously super smooth. There's 2 B-RAWs on top of each other, 2 6K B-RAWs, 3 6K B-RAWs on top of each other. Timeline very smooth. Yeah, as you can see, no problem. Not a lot of stress for the CPU at all. 2 B-RAWs on top of each other, 0 drop frames again. 3 B-RAWs on top of each other, completely fine as well. So this is 8K Canon RAW from the R5, okay? I have never really seen this played back properly, but let's hit that play button and see what happens. $300 watts, my friends. That Canon R5 gets it hit 300 watts. Okay, we're dropping, whoa, we are actually playing back something, but it's very choppy, and I haven't seen really any footage being played back with this. Press play here. So half the resolution now. We have dropped 2 frames, but it's completely playable. As you can see, half the resolution, you can play this back, and I think most people are going to do it half resolution. I don't know anyone who edits 8K but at full resolution. Let me know if that's you. Yeah, So when it's half, that's completely fine and very smooth. At full, it's a bit choppy. Not worth it, in my opinion. Now, this is Red RAW 8K. We're gonna press play. Let's see what happens. Let's press play. Okay, at first we're playing back. 0 frames dropped. Let's see if we're gonna continue doing that. The fans are kicking in crazy. But look at that. 8K Red RAW. There we go. We're playing it back, no problem. No problem. Timeline performance is quite smooth as well. Quite instant. Bear in mind this is 8K with color grade on as well. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, pressing play, no problem. Look, 0 frames dropped. I'm impressed with this. This is Sony A1, okay? 8K, 10-bit 420, H.265 and 24 frames per second. So timeline scrubbing here, let's have a look. Quite all right. Slightly choppy. Yeah, it's slightly choppy here. Let's press play, see what happens. Looks like it's gonna be played back on the Intel iGPU. The playback is very smooth actually. 4 frames dropped. 0 frames dropped. Very smooth. Bear in mind we've got color grade on there as well. That's nice to see. No problem. And the last clip is a 12K. Okay, if you don't know how good this 12K is, each frame is about 85 megapixels. Let's put it at full resolution. Let's see what happens. Not quite, but no one would play it back full resolution, but I just wanted to see if it can do that. Let's press play on here. Whoa. Our RAM was maxed up. That was the problem. That 12K really wanted a lot of RAM, but I didn't have it. Let's have a look. Playing back half the resolution. CPU 100%, 80%, memory about 34 gigs, just over 50%. Timeline performance extremely smooth. Yeah, half the resolution is fine. Let me try full resolution again. Yeah, no, full resolution doesn't work. Let's have a look at the hardware situation here. What was the hit here? We hit 300 watts maximum on the CPU, which is quite insane actually. And the max temp on the CPU is 97 degrees we hit, which is quite crazy as well, but considering it is 300 watts we put through, is not too bad. Let's have a look at clock speeds as well. Look, one core goes 5.8 gigahertz there. Any more? 1, 2, 3. Look, 3 cores have gone 5.8 gigahertz. 1, 2, 3. And then that's the P cores. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, 2 cores have gone 5.8 gigahertz. And then 6 P cores have gone 5.5 gigahertz. And then E cores have hit the max 4.3 gigahertz there. Pretty nice. And the GPU max 64 degrees on the hotspot, but temperature 53, so quite all right as well. So in conclusion, is this 13900K good for video editors? And the answer is yes. It's very good just because it combines the iGPU and the Intel GPU, and then the extreme amount of CPU power, which is just unmatched right now. Now the Ryzen 7000 series, they do have iGPU as well, but right now AMD needs to work with Adobe to actually get that utilized and to get this actually decoded and get like hardware acceleration support for some of the codecs. Right now Intel is the best one. Now I was extremely surprised to see some of the 5K and 6K playback and even 8K Red RAW playback, because there is still only 8 performance cores in there and 16 extra efficiency cores. So basically there is halfy there, but I'm impressed at the performance, and it's the smoothest processor I have ever tried. Now, I haven't tried Ryzen 7000 yet, but so far this has been the absolute smoothest one in there. If you want to check out this processor or any of the Testbench setup, check it out in the description below. But also, if you want to build yourself a creator PC, then there is a 4-part series in the description below. You can clearly see it there. 4 PCs for 4 different budgets, from $750 to $5,000. So if you do want to build yourself the best bang for buck PC for you as a creator, then these videos are the best ones for you. You can completely configure it to your budget and get the best PC for you. For your performance, I've said this many times now, best bang for buck PCs, they are in there. Go check them out. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in the comment section below. Bye bye.